The Pit Press Podcast.
Reinholz launches from downtown. No. Van Horn, no. And that's it. New Mexico wins it.
Kenny Thomas blocks. Gibson hustling down. He has some room. And he gets it. Oh, long three. He got it.
My goodness. Kendall Williams from 35 feet. For the win. Snell. Got it. He got it. Wow. With 1.8 seconds remaining.
And New Mexico's going to dribble out the clock. The Lobos three-peat as conference tournament champions. Kendall Williams fires the ball into the air, but New Mexico wins it this afternoon 64-58 over San Diego State, and the Lobos claim the Mountain West Conference's automatic bid into the NCAA tournament.
Welcome to another episode of the Pit Press Podcast. My name is Ryan Tomari, and as always, it's more of a special episode, and we're happy to have this guest on. The name is synonymous not only in this town, but the state, and I think in Sacramento. But anyway, to Ed, I go to my co-host who always joins me on this, Mr. Ed Nunez, the voice of the Western New Mexico Mustangs and a Lobo fan since 1970. How are you, man?
Doing great, Ryan. Got a great guest on. Very excited about it.
All right. I'm sure he's itching to talk to us. But before that, I'm sorry, Kenny, we have to pay our bills. Looking for a place to watch the Lobos when they are on the road? Head over to Turquoise Desert Tap Room. Only a few minutes away from the Santa Ana Star Casino. Catch the Lobos, other college football games, and at least this weekend, the conference championship games. Stop by for food, drinks, and football. Turquoise Desert Tap Room also serves the local brews on tap. Find them on Facebook and Instagram at Turquoise Desert Tap Room. And, of course, Abrazo Homes, our friend Mackenzie Bishop. It's Lobo-owned and Lobo-operated and a proud supporter of the University of New Mexico Athletic Department and its student athletes. Join the movement and help Abrazo Homes build momentum by contributing to the 505 Sports Venture Foundation or the UNM Lobo Club. When you buy an Abrazo home, you become a part of the Abrazo Familia. Looking to build the perfect home in New Mexico, find them at abrazohomes.com. And I'm sorry, Ed, I just left you on there. And as I always say, when I say Familia, not bad for a kid who went to Polish Mass on Saturday mornings in New Jersey. Our next guest was and I'm sorry for this long introduction. Our next guest was a USA Today and a Parade Magazine High School All-American.
Why are you apologizing for the long introduction? It's a long list, man.
Get it in, baby. Get it in, right? Get it in.
You know, I was talking with somebody that I went to high school with, and like all the accolades, and I was like, and I went to St. Pius, so my parents paid for me, and I was like, all I did was drink and dress up as a banana at our senior year at basketball games, and almost threatened to get arrested. Thank God my mom was a Bills bondsman at the time. His freshman year helped the UNM men's basketball team. My stand-up, that's why I'm doing this and not stand-up comedy. His freshman year helped the UNM men's basketball team set a school record for wins, finished ranked in both polls, and won the Western Athletic Conference tournament. He was rewarded with numerous awards such as WAC Freshman of the Year, All WAC Newcomer Team, First Team All District 7. I don't know what the hell that is. First Team All WAC, 1996 WAC Tournament MVP, and Third Team Freshman All American. And now for time constraints, he helped the Lobos to 4 straight NCAA tournaments and wins in each of those years. He became the first player in history in the WAC to surpass 18,000 points, 1,000 rebounds, and 200 block shots. And I didn't know this. I think you eclipsed 1,000 rebounds against BYU. I actually like hearing that. That's the only time I'll be biased on here, Ed. In the 1999 NBA draft, he was a first round pick, 22nd overall for the Houston Rockets. He went on to play 11 seasons in the NBA for Houston, Philly, and Sacramento. During his NBA career, he averaged 9.3 points a game, almost 7 rebounds per game, and over an assist per game. Now, you can listen to him every Tuesday and Friday with Jeff Simeon and JJ Buck on the opening drive on KNML. I believe it's called Kicking It with Kenny. The sports animal, and then on the sports animal there, and then Lobos Live with Brandon Ortega after every UNM men's basketball game on the Lobo Radio Network, which is 96.3 KKOB. I'm pretty sure everybody knows who his name is. His name is Kenny Thomas. Kenny, how are you doing? And we appreciate your time here with us.
And I'm good. Yeah, thanks for having me. Ed's been sending me the clips for a while now and showing me about the episodes, and I think you guys are doing great work. And Ed reached out to me. Me and Ed go back, and he's been telling me and talking to me about my 2 radio shows that I got, and telling me, giving me some feedback and things like that. So I'm like, why not?
Well, we appreciate your time, and
Yeah.
it's always cool talking. God, I was at St. Mary's in elementary and middle school, and I can still remember, maybe I don't know what year it was. I can still remember seeing CBS the one year you guys knocked off Butler. So there you go, Ed. There's the drop, and I'm getting old, but I'm gonna throw it to you and the first question.
Kenny, I had a good talk with former Albuquerque High head coach and assistant coach Ron Garcia today, who I've known since I've been in 6th grade. I've known Coach Garcia for a long time. Your 1995 Albuquerque High team beat Clovis for the championship in the pit. You played with Damian Jenkins, Miguel Tibman, Joel Murphy, among others, and were coached by the legendary Jim Holzman. What are your memories of that team and Coach Holzman?
Great question, man. I've been coming here since I was 12 years old, being able to play on the AAU team. That was through Vince Garcia. And then being able to grow up and play with some of the guys that I actually played against in high school, AJ Bramlin and some other guys. And being able to come to Albuquerque High with the tradition being the way it was and Holzman being the legend that he is, it was an honor. Obviously, he's a stickler. For when I first came in, I had to actually shaved a little bit of facial hair that I had at the time, but I didn't have to shave again, right? But it was one of those things. He was trying to set a precedence of the culture, and the culture at Albuquerque High. It's known for winning. '95 was a huge year for me. I just ran into Miguel Titman a couple times. You know how small Albuquerque is, and being able to see Damon Jenkins and a couple other guys I follow on social media, but being able to be a part of that whole program and the legacy, it's huge.
Real quick, I got to tell you this, Coach Garcia, you can imagine we had about a 20-minute conversation. And, he said there was a lot of pressure on the team that year. And you guys, one team at Monzano, I guess, had written ACT on their shoes, said something about you hadn't taken the ACT test. And I know you remember that. Coach Garcia remembered everything. And, you guys
You really brought that up?
No, but it wasn't a knock. It was just the pressure of other teams around the team that year. And one of the things he said, too, as you know, Albuquerque High has won 7 championships, and there's always talks about which team was the best team. Now, this Coach Garcia just said this to me. None of those teams, in all respect to all the championship teams that Albuquerque High has had, none of those teams had an answer for you. That was putting it pretty out there to me, because I've had talks with the late Coach Metters, all the ex-Bulldogs, man, about who was the best. And Coach Garcia said to me, nobody had an answer. None of those teams had an answer for you. And he also mentioned you guys winning VCI, you and AJ Bramlett. God, he had a lot of great memories. You guys dominated, he said, and it was great. He was part of that coaching staff. Coach Garcia also said you were one of the most highly recruited players in the country. All of a sudden, boom, you shot up to number 12. And how hard was it to decide on coming here to UNM? How hard was it? You had a lot of choices.
Yeah, I mean, to answer the first question, when it came to the SAT, ACT score, me coming here, if anybody was able to try and use something against me, they were trying to use that against me.
Right.
It
That's what he
just,
said.
it just lit me up. Then that's when I was able to come to Albuquerque High and do what I did. As far as like the team being one of the best ones in '95, I wouldn't know. Like I know a lot of great guys that played at UNM, like Manny Otero. Me and Manny Otero and Chris Gonzalez and AJ, we got a group text. We were just talking about the other day. What if I was able to play with Manny Otero, and then not Damian Jenkins, right? If I was at Albuquerque High for all 4 years instead of just one, well, how many championships could I have actually won? It's an honor to be remembered as one of the big men in the state at that time. But it was me and AJ. Me and AJ And Taman Domzowski actually was the one that was supposed to be the stud. And then it ended up being that Taman went to Duke and AJ went to Arizona, won a national championship, and I came into Mexico and had the career that I had. And I think me and AJ, we still connect. We talk. Chris, there's a lot of guys even that I played against in high school that I see all the time, some around the city, and being able being able to come into an environment that was very heavily loaded with basketball. One of the reasons why I went to UNM because the state championship game in the pit, 18,000 people. I wanted that every night, every game, and I ended up getting that at UNM from the first time I stepped on the court. It was 18,000 people. That's one of the main reasons why I stayed at UNM. And even though I had an opportunity to have lunch with the late Dean Smith for the University of North Carolina, I didn't end up taking that opportunity. It just felt right to be able to be a part of UNM basketball, and I committed even before I had to, and it just felt right. I had a conversation. Actually, I'll never forget this. I had a conversation with Clayton Shields and Charles Smith, and then I went into the office and I committed. So it felt right. Turned out good for me. Um, I had a great career here at UNM.
I'm glad you mentioned was segueing that into your high school, in the state tournament playing in the pit. And that's pretty much every basketball player's dream in New Mexico. But your overall record as a Lobo in the pit is 71-3, which is unreal. You led UNM to the first four. You led UNM to wins in each year, 4 years straight. God, I can't talk today. What do you think prevented the Lobos from advancing further in the tournament? Was there anything? I know you guys won a couple first round games, but going
Yeah.
further, I
Yeah.
didn't write that question. Ed did.
No, you're good. You're totally fine. Before each year, it was a different team. Obviously, I think my first 2 years were the more dominant years to where we had a better shot at probably going past the Sweet 16. Um, we got matched up with some tough opponents, even in the first round. The fact that we were able to surpass the first round of all 4 years in a row, we went up against some top-notch teams. Even though my senior year we ended up playing against Georgetown and they blew us out. I had tore my groin in the WAC tournament, and there was another year where Royce got hurt, and he was our sniper. And I think that was my sophomore year. But I really, I I'm gonna say this and stick to it that I think my first 2 years were the first 2 years to where we should have went to the Sweet 16. But keep in mind, man, everything gotta be right. Everything gotta be perfect. That Georgetown game, I think we were up at halftime, or they were up by a couple points, or whatever it may be. And then Allen Iverson came out and took over the game, and David Gibson didn't have an answer for him. But we had a nice run those 4 years, and I want Lobo basketball to get back to what it used to be. I don't know if it'll get back to that, but being able to being on a national platform and being able to stay consistent is what it needs to get back to.
Real quick comment, if I could, Ryan, that game against Georgetown, David Gibson, Kenny, you remember, had actually done a decent job in the first half against Iverson, and then Iverson, being Iverson, broke out in the second. And I thought, David Gibson, a pass first, not a natural point guard, probably one of the best athletes, ran the 100-yard dash champion for Sandia in high school. But I thought David Gibson had done a pretty good, commendable job on Iverson in the first half, but Iverson, being Iverson, just broke out.
David Gibson reminds me of like a Eric Snow. I played with Eric Snow in Philadelphia with Allen Iverson for a couple of years. He's a floor general, not the best shooter, but Dave Bliss at the time could trust David Gibson, and Gibby was that guy to where Dave Bliss would lean on him even if he wasn't the best guy on the team when it came to the point guard position, especially if there was guys on the bench that could score. It wasn't about scoring when it came to Gibby, but Allen Iverson during that game, I feel like nobody can really contain him, right? I think he was missing shots, and David got the credit, but he came out and took over. and they were stacked. They had Jahidi White, they had the Junkyard Dog, they had Victor Page. I think they had they had a nice squad.
I think Ed's going to ask you about Allen Iverson in a bit, and that's from our question from our friend a longtime friend of mine that does the show and is a big NBA fan, Rick Thompson. And Ed, I didn't mean to throw you under the bus there because you're my guy, but that might be the finally the Giants Cowboys hatred.
That's all right, man.
Kenny, did you ever have a college teammate that ran hot like Jalen House?
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah. Did you say college or pro?
College.
Ooh,
And
yeah.
if anybody, you know what, in that case, if anybody in the pro,
Eh, eh,
both.
you're asking both, but I'll start with college now. Run hot. I don't. I wouldn't necessarily say that Jalen House runs hot. I wouldn't use those words. I think it's just emotion and passion. When it came to that on the teams that I played with here at UNM, right away you think of Royce Only, you think of Clayton Shields, you think of Greg Shorenstein. You probably don't remember him, but he was like a four man. Um, who else? And then you got John Robinson, that was a point guard. Um, I think that was kind of it when it came to the running hot. I think that my junior year and senior year, I think that was what was missing when it came to us getting and going over that hump to the next level. And back in college, I was a quiet guy to a certain extent, and then I would just go out and play. I wasn't in the locker room. That I wasn't that guy at the time.
Since you mentioned that, was there anybody in the pros that talked the best
Yeah. Oh my
shit?
bro. I played with some of the greats and I played against some of the greats. You got Rasheed Wallace, you got Ron Artest, you got um man, you never know on any given night. I could run hot, but it all depends, man. In the heat of the moment, there's certain things to where I could be having a good game and going in on somebody to where they're guarding me, and then it could get hot and heated, right? But yeah, but I would I can't believe I'm calling him Ron. He'll probably kill me right now. This comes out, but I meant meta. My bad.
No, it's all good. I always think about Jim Rome always used to talk about how they played a game on a pickup game in Queens, and somebody got stabbed with like a chair, and they just kept a broken leg of a chair, and they just kept playing. I don't know if there's any truth to that, but that's a Meta World piece for on our test story. I don't mean yeah, it's crazy.
He's the nicest guy in the world though. So, but the stereotype is not there. But if somebody's gonna get emotional and in the moment, yeah.
And
But
I liked watching him play. I'll just say that.
on the court, though, Kitty, I mean, I watched him, at a little bit of St. John's, and then, in the pros with the Bulls and the Pacers and the Lakers. And that guy, man, they said Jordan had called him one time to work out with him when he was planning to come back, and he broke his ribs. I mean, that's how strong the guy was, man. So yeah, I see him off the court, but on the court, that guy was a dog, man, no doubt.
Yeah, think about it. When you think about the late Kobe Bryant, if Kobe Bryant wants you on your team and he gets him, that's that edge that was needed probably to help the Lakers get to the championship that year when Ron won the championship. So I get it. He was electrifying in Sacramento. It was nice to actually be around that kind of energy and that edge, to be honest.
Yeah, but
I'm sorry that we're ping ponging back from college and pro. We were trying to keep
You're
it
good.
subjects the same for a little bit. And I'm sure you get asked this all the time. And now that I've got you on our episode on our show, I mean, what is it like playing in the pit in front of 18,000 people?
My 18,000 people, it was surreal.
Sorry, your
Um,
18,000
it,
people.
it was just, I mean, I'm in the pit now. It's 15,000. It's legit, but I don't know the vibe. You can call it the 3,000 more people and then the standing room only. You can call it that, but I don't know, man. I'm happy to see the pit is back sold out like it is because it shouldn't just be sold out just for big time games, right? it shouldn't. You shouldn't have 7, 8,000 people in the stands. I don't care who you're playing. I'm not used to seeing that. I don't know anything about that, but it needs to get back to the excuse me. It needs to get back to the tradition that it's accustomed to.
Ed, the floor is
think-
yours.
Yeah, I think it's funny that you mentioned that, Kenny. When I watched the Lobos of 77, 78 with Cooper and Marvin Johnson, I go back a long time, and those media seats were student seats, and the Mez was there, 18,000. I've never heard it louder. That place was a
Yes.
madhouse every single night, every night. And it's still. And I remember Hunter Green saying this. Hunter and I talked about it, and
Yeah.
Hunter was, they revitalized or revamped the pit for 60 million, and his thing was like, hey, maybe they should have built a whole new arena. And the pit's got that magic, right? And you played there, and man, you heard ear splitting decibels of crowd noise. And it's still last week against Utah State, Ryan and I were sitting on together, and
Yeah.
the noise was loud, and it gets the players. Greg Brown used to say the Pits were 10 points before the game started. He would say that, and Greg Naismith Player of the Year. That guy, man, one of the greatest Lobos we ever saw. But I think you're right. The Pit back then at 18,000, man. Anyway, Kenny, it's hard not to get sidetracked because you had so many.
Oh,
things.
you're good. You're good.
Kenny, in 2001, 2002 in the pros, you averaged 14 points and 7 rebounds with Houston, and that was one of your best NBA seasons. You had some other good seasons as well. But what do you recall about that year in particular?
Houston. So when I first came in, I wasn't playing. I didn't play like the first 45 games. I was drafted 22nd overall. Steve Francis was the number 1, number 2 pick. He was the guy. We came in the same year. I still talk to him to this day. I started playing. When I started playing after those 45 games, I became a starter. And the being comfortable was there because I knew the minutes were coming. And I knew I was Rudy Tomjanovich's guy in Houston. And the way we were playing, we were isoing, we were playing free. It was kind of like I was at UNM. I would play with my back to the basket, and then next thing you know, it's a cross screen, down screen type plays like that, to where I'm able to shoot the three. I feel like the 3-pointer in college set me up to be able to go to the pros because we were isoing a lot, and then I would stand over there and let it fly. So I think it was just a matter of getting comfortable that year, but I think it was the following year, 2002, 2003, when I went to Philadelphia and I signed my big contract. And then I averaged a double-double. So I was the shortest to average a double-double my first year on the contract when I was making like 5.5 million a year that year, I think. Yeah, I was in the top 10 with like Tim Duncan, KG, all those guys to be the shortest at my height to average a double-double. So I think that was my better year than the year you're talking about, Ed, because right after that year, I was like, okay, well, here we go. I feel like I'm gonna become an all-star, and why not do it in the Eastern Conference because it wasn't as stacked as the Western Conference at the time.
You mentioned Ron Artest, you mentioned KG, you mentioned Tim Duncan, you mentioned Rasheed Wallace, all those guys, great players. Rasheed Wallace would get 20 T's a year before they would start suspending people after the 15th, or suspending them for one game. That guy would go real hot and cold, could stretch, do a bunch of things. Great player. What are some of the toughest power forwards you played with? You mentioned some others. You mentioned some already. What other forwards in the league? I think Karl Malone was still in the league at that time.
Yeah,
What other? Go ahead, Kenny. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. You mentioned some of the greats that I've guarded. You got to also understand they had to guard me too.
Yeah.
Especially with them being bigger, I would always turn and face to a certain extent. It wasn't to my advantage to play with my back to the basket like I did in college. But you got to think about Tim Duncan, you think about his great footwork. You got to think about Hakeem Olajuwon, who I played with in Houston. I think I have pretty good footwork, but the fact that the dream taught me a lot of different things as far as being patient and dictating what I want to do instead of like trying to rush and allow the defense to be able to recover and different things like that. But when you talk about bigs, I guarded Shaq. I didn't guard him, but I was there, right? Um, But you got guys like Big Ben who play with Rasheed Wallace.
Ben Wallace.
Yeah, his nickname was Big Ben. Who else? I mean, just you think about KG and Tim Duncan, just those two guys alone were a handful in their own right. But to my advantage, I would try and front them and get them off the block to where they weren't as effective as being closer to the basket. So I use my quickness to my advantage to a certain extent. But I mean, I even got to play against Michael Jordan, man, when he was an owner Wizards. He was an owner player for the Wizards. So who else? Other bigs. That's fair.
I'm going to be a
Those are the
homer
ones
here.
that I can think
Patrick
of.
Ewing. I said
Who?
Patrick Ewing. Patrick Ewing.
Patrick Ewing was more of a five. Did I guard him
Right.
from time to time? I think so. I think I was guarding Patrick on his way out. If I did, I can't remember if I played against Patrick.
No, I know he was a center. I was just thinking about big guys, and then I called him by his Snickers commercial name. So my bad.
No,
You
you're
know,
good. You're good.
You mentioned some of those amazing players, and I got to ask you this: and Rudy Tomjanovich, the Houston Rockets legend as a player, Rudy T, and involved with that situation with Kermit Washington, which was unfortunate. He recovered from that, won 2 championships with Houston. Just a great guy. Never worked out the Lakers.
You had to bring up '94, Ed.
Yeah, you know what? New York had a great chance to win, I thought, that year. But Rudy T, I mean, think about that team, Kenny. Cassell, Robert Horry, Olajuwon, I think Vernon Maxwell might have, but I think he was there. And that's
He was
another
there.
Mad Max. That guy, man.
Yeah.
You talk about hot and cold. But I got to ask you this: did you ever catch an elbow from the mailman? Because that guy was known for hitting people. Sometimes it was on purpose. Sometimes he didn't mean to. But that guy could run the floor as well as any power forward that ever played at 6'10". About what, 280, 2 around?
Yeah, he was stocky. He was bigger up top than he was down. That's where he was grown man strength. I actually got ejected, I think, my second year because I got 2 texts playing against Karl Malone at the Compact Center. I got ejected. That was my first ejection. And it was $2,500 total, and I was so mad, man. I wanted to try and get some of that money back, but I didn't get it back. But Karl Malone was a guy that he's very physical. I'm pretty sure I did. I have some stitches throughout my face and throughout my career, and I've gotten hit. Um, but he was one of those guys that he was a guy that you could study and see some of the things that he did as far as running the floor and being in good position and kind of judging um, where the ball is going to come off when it came down to rebounds. You got to also remember the great Charles Barkley. Like watching him growing up, he was a big idol. That's one of the reasons why I wore number 4 in college. And then, if you think about it, remember they used to call me Shaq of the Whack. Somebody just brought that up recently too. I couldn't believe that was actually my nickname in college. But yeah.
Drop step was lethal. I told Coach Garcia, and Coach Garcia and I talked about that today. He remembers your first shot for Albuquerque High was a drop step dunk. He said he could find it on tape somewhere. He still remembered that. So it's again some incredible names that you played against, and the mailman, of course, the pick and pop was Stockton. He was known for that. They worked that 2-man game maybe as well as anybody in NBA history. We have to ask you this. You mentioned the dream. Elijah Akeem taught you a lot. Some of the best footwork ever in NBA history. But we have to ask you this: what was it like playing with Allen Iverson?
Great. You gotta understand, like we were playing Philadelphia, but we would be the home team at home. But when we went on the road, it was just a different environment. It seemed like we were the home team on the road. This guy was like a rock star. The people that came out and supported on the road, it was tremendous. Everywhere we went, all the all the respect and all the people, it was insane. I played with a couple guys that actually drew that kind of attention. But if you don't remember, Allen Iverson came to Albuquerque for me on the Reebok jet, and it was probably my biggest camp in the summer. I think I had like 430 kids that year. So good guy. And I actually talk to him every now and then. And as you know, him and Shaq just became president, vice president of Reebok. So I congratulated him on that
Oh, wow,
situation.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
I did not know that. It's very cool.
Yeah.
We switching gears to UNM, and I haven't said it out loud, but I will say it to you. You and not just saying it. A lot's been made of JT Toppin lately on the roster, the freshman. You are the career leader with dunks at UNM. Do you feel like that record is going to be in jeopardy?
So it's dunks now. I thought it was double doubles as a freshman. So it's both. Man, I'll put this out there, and I've said it on both of my radio shows right now. I don't care about no records, right? If he breaks them, cool. Like that's gonna help UNM. That's gonna attract different people to come and play for UNM. I hope, right? Um, him being a true freshman and doing what he's doing, good. I mean, I'm happy. I like talking great about the Lobos when I do my post game show, and even when I'm on the Sports Animal. And he breaks it, perfect. And once again, there's plenty of other records that I have. I'm not worried about that. And records are meant to be broken.
What was for you? What was the hardest thing coming in and having an impact as a freshman when you came here at UNM? When you went to UNM?
See, when I came in at UNM, people probably don't realize this that I had just sued the NCAA for a half a credit to be able to play college ball. I wasn't even supposed to play my freshman year. I feel like if I would have went anywhere in the country, who knows what would have happened? I probably would have redshirted. But the fact that I stayed here, um, I ended up with an attorney, won the injunction, um, and I was able to go practice right away. And then what people don't realize is that the NCAA did not go away. I had to make a deal with them to sit out my senior year, the first semester. I wasn't even supposed to stay in college all 4 years, to be honest. I could have left after my freshman year, but I wanted to get closer to my degree, and I decided to stay. And it was a great situation for me. I'm happy I stayed all 4 years. But I UNM was good, and it was the right moment, and we were on top. And being ranked all 4 years in the top 25 was a tremendous accomplishment, and I don't regret anything.
No question about it. Kenny, right now, Lobo Mania, we're seeing it shoot through the roof. When the Lobos are good here, you remember, Lobos rule the town. Lobo basketball is number one. Everything else, a very distant second. I'm not even sure what I would say is a distant second right now. But what do you make of the UNM men's basketball team has done in the last week with big wins? And I mean, solid wins at home against San Diego State and Utah State. What do you make of that?
Well, first off, I know we always when I do these to a certain extent, we always talk about the men. I got to give a shout out to the women. The women have been playing some great ball. I've been following them. They're balling out just like the men right now. Hopefully, they can keep that up. But the Lobos, as far as playing at home, the energy's been there. Obviously, it's been like 15,000 sold out for San Diego. I think closely to like the same thing for Utah State. And those teams are ranked. And the disappointing part is like they should be coming to every game and packing it and selling it out. Um, but the fact that UNM people didn't know if they were going to win those games, but they won them at home and they won them convincingly. But UNM got to do a better job of winning on the road. The last game against Air Force, they were 7-9. They're supposed to win that game, but sometimes it's hard going down there and playing in Colorado and playing at Air Force in that boring, cold arena, right? And now you have a San Jose team that's dead last, and you play them tomorrow. So hopefully they come out with some energy, get some more road wins, because that's going to help them in the seeding when it comes to the NCAA tournament bidding.
You mentioned winning on the road, and yeah, you're right. The pit when you have it's magic. You have 15,000. It energizes you. Jalen House plays off of the crowd. There's no question about it. Plays downhill, and when he's playing like that, the rest of the team seems to follow suit. It seems like Coach Pitino has found his rotation right now. Things are working well. How does Coach Pitino keep this momentum going with 3 straight wins? You mentioned they have to win. They should beat Air Force. They did. They should beat San Jose State. How does he keep the momentum going, Kenny?
Well, I think it starts on the defensive end. That's where House brings that edge, that intensity, which I like. But it just has to be done in right moments. because he's a guy that needs to be on the floor. If he's not on the floor, it's going to be harder for them to win. Even though the big three in the backcourt's playing pretty good, the fact that Mashburn is turning it on and people are getting down on him, I just see him playing even better as we get closer to the Mountain West tournament and finishing out the conference play. But the bench, Amzil, the way he's coming in, I don't think he's a guy that needs to be posting up. It's more of a perimeter slasher, knock down shots because the Lobos, let's just admit it, they're not a great 3-point shooting team. They're just not. But when they're getting in the paint and they're attacking because of the big three on the front, I feel like they're great. And the way Toppin is finishing around the basket is awesome. I think True Washington is going to be a key component coming off the bench, and how he's aggressive and how he has been. I feel like he's a guy that can get a little bit more minutes too.
Kind of stole thunder from my next question there, but I think a lot has been made of what the defense was last year to this year. Can you just comment on what you've seen defensively from this Lobo team this year?
Well, they're buying into the philosophy of the defense by playing the passing lanes, being there, helping each other, supporting each other on the defensive end. Because you end up playing those passing lanes, you obviously get opportunities for fast break points, which is where they're really good getting up and down. I think the Lobos are a better team, especially in transition when they're doing pick and rolls. It's great for college basketball, but it's also getting them ready for the pros, which is pick and roll anyway. It's always about mismatches.
Asking you about kind of your media career. How did you get, and I know that you were with the Sacramento Kings in their pre and post game show, but how did you get involved with Lobos Live, and what's it like working with Brandon and Ortega this far?
So NBC, the last 2 years I did NBC Sports in California. They didn't bring me back this year, so I'm like, okay, I need another media outlet. So I called Jeff Symbieta. We've kind of talked about it before. I called Jeff. Next thing you know, I'm in there meeting with the guys that run the station. It came down to the point of obviously me being on twice a week now with Jeff. That's going to be all the way up until the end of basketball season, all the way up until June. So those 2 days will happen every Tuesday and Friday from 9 to 9:30. I get to kind of talk about anything that I want, and I also get to promote all my businesses that I have going on, all the way down to my wine, KT Legacy Wines, that's here in the state. Um, that's about to be in Albertsons. I got Total Wines coming. My wine is in the pit. So it's growing around the whole state, and I'm having fun with the post game show. It's one of those things to where I have two outlets, and I have an opportunity to be heard in several different ways, and it's not always going to be pretty, but I'm enjoying it.
And another great answer there, because you stole thunder from my next question. I was going to ask you to talk about KT Legacy Wine, but how did you get involved in that?
So KT Legacy Wines it's an opportunity where I partnered up with the vineyard in California. Southern Glaciers is my distributor. There's some retail and some restaurants that have decided to carry it. I'm going around promoting it, getting it everywhere and anywhere I can. Obviously, it's in the pit, up there on the suite level in the alumni room. It's not on the lower level because they only serve beer and things like that. People are asking me, so that's why I put that out there. But it's growing. Albertsons is about to come online. And I'm just building it up and going from there. I have some things in California with my wine with Rayleigh's. I'm about to launch in Rayleigh's next month, which is 102 stores in the whole state of California. Yeah.
Ed, do you have anything else for Mr. Kenny Thomas?
No, you know what, Kenny? Can't thank you enough for joining us, man. And I'm glad you have a lot of business ventures that you got them here in New Mexico. And I think that I think you've got that. I've heard your post game show. I told you, I texted you. I think you're doing a great job with it. You're always real appreciative of the callers, and always have people want to call back, right? When they hear that, they're like, "Hey, man, this guy is engaging. He's friendly. He's saying I appreciate it." Those things sometimes are forgotten, but very important. So you know what? Hey, all respect to you, man. I'm glad you're here, bringing your
Thank
business here. You're doing a great job, man.
Man, I appreciate it. Thank you, Ed, for that. And New Mexico's my foundation. This is my home. This is where everything started. I have to have things going here. Why? It's just in my blood, and being able to come back and do all the things that I'm doing is good. You can follow me on my social media at kennythomas.com. You can go to Kenny Thomas. No, I'm sorry, excuse me. My social media handle is at Kenny Thomas NBA. You can go to kennythomas.com. I just have a lot. I have basketball tournaments coming up here this summer. I have some other adventures coming, so follow me and stay tuned for the ride.
Love it.
He from the intro at the beginning, I mean, I could reread it or replay it, but probably one of the best Lobo basketball players of all time, for your starter.
Man, everybody has their own opinions. Everybody has their favorites, right? I don't care.
I mean, what's really funny is, and not to keep you any longer, but my dad was ill growing up, and I get the love of college football from my mom. So we went to Lobo football games before. I really was paying attention to basketball, but man, all those years you guys went to the tournament, I thought it was the coolest thing. And then like it stopped happening. And it was like, when I was younger, it was this expectation that UNM had to made the tournament every year. And then when I got involved in journalism in my degree now, for me, at least for me, a billion years ago, and what Alfred turned the pit into, man, I've become a much bigger. I mean, I love college football still. It's my jam, and I get a lot of what for being a big baseball fan. That's what I grew up playing. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, when I think of, just because Ed, sorry, my age, when I think of Lobo basketball, man, I do think of Kenny Thomas, and I do think of Royce Only, and I do think of Charles Smith. And then now I know guys like Doris and Rowe and Darrington, and I kind of talking with Kendall, but
Yeah.
I will just say this before we go. I really appreciate your time, and thank you for taking 30, 40 minutes to join with us, and probably sitting and talking about things you already have, but we
all
really
good.
appreciate it, Thomas. We really appreciate it. So Lobo
Man,
Great, Kenny Thomas.
Thank you, man. If it wasn't for people like you allowing me to be on their platform and asking me to come on, where would I be? It's kind of crazy to me how there's not one jersey hanging in the pit.
Never thought of that.
Yeah, you got to add this to. You can't cut that out. You got to add this.
No. This is everything's raw here.
There's no like you go like think about it. If you think of San Diego State, which is Jeff Symbiota's alma mater, right?
Right.
They just retired 4 people, and they're hanging. You go to Utah. I was just there because I was there for All-Star Weekend in February. And University of Utah had HBCU games in there, and you go in there and you see Doliak, even Doliak. You got Hanela, obviously Andre Miller, and Keith Van Horn. I'm like, there's not one jersey hanging.
That's
I
crazy.
figured I'd throw that out there.
No, you know what? And just a quick list: Harge, Daniels, you, Cooper, Willie Long, Petey Gibson, Phil Smith, Kelvin Scarborough, Marvin Johnson. There's more. I'm sure I'm missing some. Maybe Kendall Williams. There's so many that you could talk about, but not one. Wow,
See,
that's
and I didn't say me.
No.
Just
You
to throw it out there.
be out there.
I'm not
though.
trying to be selfish, but there's not one jersey hanging in that building.
That's
You know
very-
what? You know what I didn't like about the renovations is they took all the banners down.
What
Not they were-
banners? Where were they?
They were
Up
hanging from the. They were hanging
Were
from.
they?
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
like NIT Final Four night. Whenever Luke.
Were they? Well, they really had them in there
Yeah,
Yeah.
they do it
Yeah.
before the renovations.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
They sure did.
Oh,
like every
see?
year for the tournament and what they did in the
Nowhere.
NIT. But yeah, I never thought about that with the retired jerseys. I mean, that would be.
Well, they need to bring those banners back. Like,
Yeah.
where are they?
That's a good question because there was a bunch of them. I still remember looking up
Ask-
like Brian did. A bunch of them.
Ask Paul Krebs.
That's it.
man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh well.
No, that's a valid point. I'm glad
Oh,
you
well.
amended it on that. So, hey, Kenny Thomas, we appreciate you, and you can check him out on at Kenny Thomas NBA. Hey, and I still can't believe I'm saying this, Ed. Hey, hit like and subscribe on our YouTube channel. Check us out on Hey, have you recovered?
We had a great year, man. I don't need to recover. Go Texans. We won our conference too. Come on, man. We overachieved this year. Don't go there. Look at that.
You go to
Look at
games
that
often?
bad boy. I've been to a couple. I didn't go this year. I'm supposed to be working NBC, man. They changed everything up.
So I'm sorry to hear that.
No, I don't care. I'm good.
Well-
On to
well-
bigger and better things.
Well, like our podcast. And by the way, CJ Stroud was I picked him up midseason for my fantasy football league. So
See, so I'm not wounded. Look at you. You're already bragging about my quarterback.
I love him. He's fantastic. And I have no ties to Ohio State.
Now,
Look, I rooted for Mr. Dirt for about 20 years, Eli Manning. So I would take a smooth like CJ Stroud over whatever the hell that was. What were you gonna say, Ed?
as a Cowboys fan, Kenny, I'm severely
Oh,
wounded.
God bless
The
you.
last 28 years, man, severely wounded.
God bless you.
Yeah,
God bless you.
but I won't change. Nope, that won't change. Will not.
Yeah, but you got the old Packers coach, so I don't know.
Garrett, Campo, Switzer, Gailey. Yeah, I've seen them all, man.
All right, fellas. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Kenny,
Kenny,
thank you
thanks,
very
man.
much. Have a good evening.
All right, you guys have a good one.
Take care.